Thank you again for joining us. My name is Kasha Samel. I'm the American Indian Resource Center librarian for LA County Library, and I am presenting this program with Katrina on behalf of my colleague, who I hold in high esteem, Ms. Rose Mitchell. She's a Black Resource Center librarian, and we're hosting the program, the amazing program, Eyes on Snapshots, a reading of personal narratives. And before we hand it over to the lovely ladies of Community Writers Group of Los Angeles, I wanted to go over some housekeeping rules. So all attendees' mics and video are turned off for the event. If you have questions, go ahead and place them uh, in the chat set to all panelists. That way, both Katrina and I and all the writers can see your questions. We'll do our best to include them in the Q&A at the end of the program. If you're having issues with sound, let us know in the chat or call in and listen over the phone with a toll-free number and an access number listed in the chat that I just shared. And I would like to share some words that Ms. Rose Mitchell, the Black Resource Center librarian, would like for me to share for her. A greetings from her. And she says, "Thank you everyone for being here today. I regret that I cannot join you for this wonderful program, but I know it will be an exciting experience for all of you. The Black Resource Center hosted this writers group at AC Boobroo Library in 2019, and it was truly inspiring and unforgettable. A special thank you goes to Ecosia for reaching out to me a few months ago with interest to present another program. Thank you, Lori, and thank you to my wonderful colleagues, Kasha and Katrina, for organizing all the details to make this event possible and for co-hosting today's program. Please enjoy." So that's what Ms. Rose Mitchell has to say. I'll be sharing more information about the Black Resource Center in the chat. And with that, I would hand the mic over to Lori.
Okay, thank you all so much for being here. As I said, my name is Lori Williams, and I am the acting president right now of Community Writers Group of Los Angeles. We are so grateful to be a part of this exciting day with the library. We're grateful to Ms. Rose Mitchell and to Katrina and Kasha for being so patient with us. Thank you for the invitation, allowing us to share our stories with you. Community Writers Group was started back in 2014, officially as a writers group by our beloved founder, Elise Woodson. The picture that you see right now is a group of, I'm sorry, Katrina, I kind of went off script. So the picture that you just saw, this picture, is a group of many of our members. It's not all of us, but it's a good number of us. And we're just a cool group of ladies. So just wanted to point out who those ladies are. You can move on now to Elise. Thank you. So Elise Woodson is the founder of the Community Writers Group. She passed away in 2019, and but she left a rich legacy for us all to partake in and to enjoy. She founded the organization in 2014 and applied for nonprofit status in 2019 and accomplished that just before her passing. She was an educator, an artist, overall artist. She worked for the California African American Museum after teaching for many years, and she was the education and film curator. She was a mother. She would have been a grandmother had she lived to see her grandson Woodson be born. She was a fabulous writer. Again, she was an artist, and we just called her a culture warrior. She just loved all things art. She traveled all over the place, and she was just a beautiful human being, and she was a really great friend to so many people. So we just always want to lift her up and let you know that she's the reason why we're writing our stories and why we have snapshots. You may move on. These are our publications. Currently, we have 6 adult volumes and 1 student volume. The stories are just about our lives. They are all nonfiction, personal accounts of our lives. Some of them are funny, some of them are sad, some of them are educational, but they're all really beautiful. So we would invite you to go to our website, which will give you that information a little later on. Oh, there it is. Go to our website and check out our publications. We have the first three are only in PDF form, but the volumes 4, 5, and 6 are in hard copies, and the student volume is also available. You can go on our website and purchase those at any time. We would love to have your support. Now we're going to move into our actual readings. So we're going to start our readings with our longest living member of the Community Writers Group of Los Angeles. She's been with the group since it actually began. Her name is Miss Peggy Powell. She is an amazing writer and an amazing woman, and we are certain that you're going to love her story. So Peggy, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. I believe they selected me to be the opening act, primarily because I am the oldest member of the group chronologically, and with the writers group from its very beginning, for which I'm very honored. I'm going to read today from my story called Easter Sunday Dinner. Easter Sunday in 2020 will undoubtedly go down in history. It was the year that COVID-19 wreaked havoc around the world, disrupting all Easter traditions and regular family activities for everyone, everywhere. Each level of government, federal, state, and city, imposed increasingly tighter restrictions that confined us inside our homes in hopes of stopping the spread of this virulent, invisible virus. The most holy and glorious resurrection morning passed quietly with its worldwide celebrants sitting before their TVs. The afternoon, usually filled with joyous family gatherings, Easter egg hunts, and scrumptious dinners, turned into just another day with another meal. There were four of us around under lockdown in our house this Easter. My son Ted, his wife Nina, her sister Nati, and of course me. Nina ordinarily looks forward to hosting all holiday dinners for our friends and extended family. Despite most guests bringing a dish to share, Nina usually fixes her favorites. However, 2020 saw no guests with their favorite dishes. Nina opted for the smallest honey-baked ham she could find, accompanied by, of all things, Popeye's chicken. After putting our four dirty dishes in the dishwasher, I retired to my room for another uneventful evening of television. I glanced up at the life-size photo of my late husband, Gordon Specs Powell, which brought memorable past Easter celebrations to mind. Specs loved to entertain and never missed an opportunity to wine and dine friends and family. It took a little adjustment for me to fully embrace his enthusiasm for these more the merrier dinner parties, but eventually I got in the swing of things. Growing up as an only child, where more than three people for a meal was a crowd, I had to adjust my thinking. It probably helped that I got my initial baptism into Speck's way of doing things at his country place at the foot of the Catskills, northwest of New York City. It was back in the day when regional cooking was still alive and well in America, and the twain of East West, North South did not meet. In home dinner parties were also popular in the Big Apple, where most people were accustomed to apartment living. However, Easter signaled the arrival of spring and the beginning of the outdoor cooking season on the East Coast, if one could find a spot to set up an hibachi. Now, cooking outdoors was something a California girl knew a little about. Specs and I met over Labor Day in 1966, married right before Christmas that same year, and held our first family dinner for Easter 1967 at his country home. I took this opportunity to introduce Specs, a New York West Indian, to my version of Southwest barbecue. Specs always invited friends along with the dinner, with the family to holiday dinners. In turn, I always prepared some particular item to make the meal a unique experience. One Easter, I decided to make leek and potato vichyssoise soup to start off a roasted leg of lamb dinner. Everyone was complimenting me on the soup when my son Ted and son Gordy caught a severe case of the giggles. We had to send them to the kitchen to gain control of themselves. When asked what caused the giggles, they said everyone praised the soup as if they didn't know it was cold. We had a big laugh when I explained vichyssoise was supposed to be a cold soup. Looking at me in disbelief, Gordy asked, "Who ever heard of cold soup?" Probably my most embarrassing Easter dinner was in the late 80s in Los Angeles. Bex personally knew O.C. Smith of Little Green Apples fame from their years in the music industry. O.C. and his wife Robbie were following their new career path as ministers of City of Angels Church of Religious Science. Bex invited them to be our guests of honor at our upcoming dinner. There were probably 10 of us gathered around our dining room table. I decided to prepare a roasted suckling pig with an apple in its mouth, no less, as a highlight of the feast. I brought out the pig with great fanfare, placing it in front of Robbie and O.C. Everyone clapped with enthusiasm except Robbie and O.C. They looked aghast at the pig. What I didn't know was that both were vegetarians, a new and growing phenomenon then. I moved the pig in front of Specs and vehemently apologized. O.C. graciously acknowledged similar experiences had happened before, but never with a pig, and that both of them were very comfortable eating the other side dishes for their dinner. So here I am, left with only memories of past Easters. I pray we will survive this COVID-19 lockdown to rise again to pick up where we left off, enjoying family gatherings and holiday celebrations. Sometimes it takes the loss of something to appreciate its real value. And with that, I would like to introduce our next reader, Lori, who you've met before.
It's actually Gail.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I had the pleasure of joining our community writers group of Los Angeles right before the pandemic. I got to see the beautiful women in person read their stories. So that was all it took, along with an invitation from another member for me to become involved. So I guess I'm the newest member for Volume 6. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born down in New Orleans in 1950, and I grew up in Los Angeles. And my parents encouraged all of us to go to school, get our education. It was what they considered the golden ticket to dealing with racism, prejudice, whatever. It was our way to move about more freely in society. So I was a very, very enthusiastic college graduate in 1976, 75, 76. And I was very excited about going to teach in public school, being in education, and to make a change and to in other kids' lives, and to not have to deal with the issues of race. So I thought, or so my parents thought. So what I want to read to you is an excerpt from the story in volume 6 that I wrote, and I called it my edumacation, because it was not an education, it was an edumacation. And for those of you that are of a certain age, you'll remember Red Fox and his use of that word. And my dad used that word a lot. So I just want to read a little bit from my snapshot. Los Angeles Unified School District had consistently been trying to integrate their schools. And in 1976, they decided if they couldn't get the kids integrated, they would integrate the teachers. So 5 Black teachers, including me, were sent to Cleveland High in Reseda, the Valley. The principal at that time had been my high school principal at Hamilton High in 1968, and he was a wise and kind-hearted gentleman. At the initial staff meeting, we were introduced: a Black female teacher in math, a Black male teacher in social studies, a Black female teacher in secretarial services, a Black female teacher in science, and a Black female teacher in special education, which was me. So there we were, the Cleveland High Five. Our initial staff acceptance, at a minimum, was frigid. Some staff members cried at the meeting. These young Black teachers had uprooted veteran white teachers, sending them to either any inner city schools, other school districts, or in some cases, in early retirement. It was settled. Neither group had a choice. Things went well despite the expectation that we would all fail, especially me, because the special education class had had 2 teachers during the last year. The first 3 years were great, but I certainly had some interesting encounters. For instance, a short white male student called me nigger, lifted his leg, and farted in front of the class while I was teaching. The conference with Mr. Sanders, my principal, who supported me 100%, included this student's father, who shared his story as to why he hated Black people. Anyway, that's my contribution. If you want to hear some more excerpts or snippets from my 36-year career in education, you'll need to look at volume 6. Now, I'd like to introduce our acting president and a wonderful writer and just a wonderful woman. That is Lori.
Thank you so much, Miss Gail, for saying those kind things. I appreciate you. So hopefully I'm unmuted. Yes, I am unmuted. I'm reading from my story called Reach Out and Touch. I'm just going to read some excerpts from it. And it's about living in South Carolina as a little girl with my grandparents. The big yellow school bus pulled right up in front of our yard, filled with boisterous kids headed to Harleyville Elementary, Jenkins Hill, and Harleyville Ridgeville High. The driver, still a child of herself at only 16, maneuvered the bus along dirt and paved roads to pick up the students from different parts of town. I couldn't wait to take that bus ride with my sisters. I started school at Harleyville Elementary, formerly a school for whites. One year, either in 3rd or 4th grade, our teacher, Ms. Maddie Brown, I believe, selected Tammy and me to participate in a variety show of sorts to be held at the school as an evening event. Students chosen from each grade level were to perform in this event. I don't remember the criteria, but as best as I can recall, Tammy and me were chosen because of our grades. Although we never demonstrated any special talents apart from academics that I can remember, we were nonetheless expected to participate in this talent showcase. I told my grandmother Ruby that Mrs. Brown selected me to participate, and she immediately went into action. Mama appointed Tony, my middle and very talented sister, to be my talent coach and made it her responsibility to prepare me for the talent portion of the show. Tony selected the song Reach Out and Touch by Diana Ross, a commercial hit released on her first album as a solo act. I loved the song and spent afternoons in our living room or front room practicing under my big sister's direction. We had an old console stereo in the front room, a room normally kept off limits. It was the only room with a carpet-like floor covering, a textured burgundy rug. A kneeling white Jesus with his head lifted to the sky hung on the paneled wall. Black and white graduation photographs of Aunt Melrose, Aunt Judy, and Aunt Isadora sat on top of the stereo console on the table next to the record player. Tony sat on the arm of the big chair, and I stood in front of her practicing after school, over and over and over again. She made sure I knew all the lyrics and that I sang with feeling, and suggested that instead of just standing there all stiff while I sang, that I should reach out my hand, palm facing up, and move my arm from one side of the room to the other as I looked out at the people in the audience. After all, the song said, reach out and touch somebody's hand. It would encourage the touching if I reached out my hand. We practiced and practiced and practiced. I took her advice. She was the family star, so I did exactly what she said. I sang, reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place if you can. And I reached. Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place if you can. That is all I'm going to share from my story. It is in volume 6. I direct you to our website so you can see what happens next. Next, I'm going to welcome to the stage of sorts our beloved Valerie Gilby. She's going to share with you a little bit more about our organization.
Hi, I'm Valerie Gilby, and I'm here to talk to you about our We See You Creative Writing and Mentoring Program. Our late founder, Elise, asked that we make a space for our youth to write their personal narratives and publish their stories because their stories are as important as ours. And so the students you see in front of you, just a couple of weeks ago, we did their ceremony, and they received, 3 of them received the Elise Woodson Scholarship, and 3 of them received the Education Fund. And after they receive their scholarships, we will be mentoring them as far as getting their stories published ready so that they will be in volume 7. Our goal is to get the youth in high school and mentor them as far as writing and as far as getting them through their high school education program through speaking with us and us always being available, community writers group, as far as having any questions or concerns they may have during their school career, high school and college career. And through the donations and proceeds and the purchase of our books and merchandise, this is what support us as far as giving them their scholarships. So we ask that you please donate or purchase our books or our merchandise because we do want to eventually send these kids to college with the full scholarship. So please join us in making possible that our youth are able to get to school with some money in their pocket. And the monies that we, like I said, that we did receive was all from our public through donations and buying our books and through buying our merchandise. So please go to our website. It's called the We See You Mentoring and Creative Program. You may have kids in your home or neighbors who may be interested. We will be starting up again next year, 2022. So please join and support us. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce our next reader, and that will be Wanda.
Akosia
Oh, I'm
Hobart.
sorry, Akosia. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Akosia. We don't have
Yes,
our.
yes. My name is Akosia Hobart. I retired from LAUSD after 30 years of teaching math and science. I have been retired the past 11 years. And 2018, my husband, 9 years, died from pancreatic cancer. And that was a tragic event for me and directed me, thanks to my friend Peggy, to this writers group. So 2015, I wrote the love story in volume 5. And here I am now in volume 6 with the support from the community writers group, a math and science teacher. I've managed to get it down on paper. So I appreciate the group very, very much. And the story I'm going to share is called Finding Helen. I began my research focusing on my maternal side. I learned that my grandmother Helen was a waitress, a live-in maid, a clothing factory worker, and for 15 years, she was a chambermaid in a local hotel. Helen also took on the task of a dietitian's aide. At one time, she and my mother worked at a post office in downtown New York. Helen told their co-workers they were sisters. Helen was a fair-skinned woman who always dressed to kill. She was undeniably beautiful. She had a flair, and she knew it. Helen would style herself with classic red high heels and alluring lipstick. Red, of course, her favorite color. She would always say it was perfect for her skin. Helen was lively, fun to be around, and she could really cook. I could see why so many men would gravitate towards her. I can't even remember a time that she didn't have a man. As I continued my journey for answers, I found that many stories surfaced between my siblings and family members. In 1960, my brother Paul spoke of surfing through the neighborhood to buy grandma some marijuana. You see, Helen had started chemotherapy. She told him that it would stop her from regurgitating and it eased the pain. His first purchase led him to know the drug dealers of the Rosedale projects. He was only 13 at the time. He just wanted to make his grandmother feel better. What is a grandson to do? In 1961, my sister Terry was diagnosed with hepatitis. After getting out of the hospital, my mother sent her to stay with our grandmother for 2 weeks. She didn't want to go because our grandmother had a drinking problem. However, this time, my sister said, everything was perfect. She didn't know if our mother said anything to Helen, but she didn't drink at all. And the two of them bonded while watching baseball games together. When my brother Hilton visited Grandma Helen, he found her drinking and smoking. One day he decided to chill with her for a while, for about 15 minutes. Then he had to leave. Her behavior wasn't the best, and her language was derogatory. These words were always directed at our mother. They were harsh reminders of the feud between Grandma Helen and our mother. There were another time when Grandma Helen called my sister Stephanie and told her she needed $60 to pay the light bill. If she didn't send it immediately, they were going to shut the lights off. Stephanie was so proud to help her. A year later, Stephanie shared the story with our mom, who explained that Grandma Helen lived in the projects and they do not pay an electricity bill. They laugh hysterically. Once again, Grandma Helen got one over on them. I'm encouraging you to purchase volume 6 and find out more about finding Helen, my maternal grandmother. And now it's time for Valerie Gilby, to share her story.
Thank you. Hello, here I am again. My story is called The Soul Train. I don't know if any of you guys remember, but you know, Saturday mornings, that was the program we all wanted to get up and watch. You know, that was where we were able to see live performances by our great artists, you know, Chaka Khan, Teddy Pendergrass, Luther Vandross. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And then we had our Mr. Laid Back Cool Don Cornelius, always suited and booted to introduce everybody with his sultrous voice. You know, those are just great memories. And that's what I talk about with Soul Train, how we learned all the latest dances and all the latest styles and that Soul Train line. You know, it was just really a part of the African American culture, actually the world, because that's where I think a lot of people around the world got a chance to get a little peek into how we got down, you know. And so that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Soul Train show. And unfortunately, it's not around today, but you can catch a few segments on YouTube. And I always tease the kids, you know, I said, you know, we didn't have to go to concerts because we was able to see all of our bands and singers right there live doing their thing. And they didn't even have to, they didn't even have these computers and all that. They sung with their voice live. You know, they was able to sing is how you say it, you know. So once again, please go to our website, purchase volume 6 to hear the rest of my story. And once again, I wish you happiness, peace, and soul. And now I would like to introduce Ida, our next reader. Ida.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ida Suna Oak. I'm a Korean War baby. And my father was a veteran with 22 years. He was a veteran of World War II and the Korean War. And like a Kosowa, in fact, we taught at the same school. I too am a retired educator, and she and I taught at the same school for many years. This story I'm going to read to you is called Citizenship. Because what I found out in my 30s was that I was not a U.S. citizen. Having a biological American father does not give you citizenship. Legal adoption doesn't give you citizenship. So I had to apply for it. And this is about that interview. My citizenship interview, during the citizenship interview, she asked, have you told us everything involving trouble with the police, Ms. Hart? In my mind, this meant felony convictions. So I said no, with confidence. She asked again, are you sure there are no problems with the police? I was thinking furiously. Something was wrong. It's not going according to plan. Did they know I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict? Did they check the state rehabilitation rosters? What could it be? I passed the paper back to the interviewer. I'm sorry, I got a little lost here. Okay. I thought again and stated I got in trouble shoplifting during my college days in Ohio. It was a misdemeanor and probation. She passed me a blank sheet of paper and asked me to write it down. I passed the paper back to the interviewer with details about the shoplifting address. She stared at me in the eye and said, Miss Hart, I have a 1973 police report of a soliciting charge in New York City for a Michelle Lee, but the fingerprint matches yours. When you are ambushed by a secret, it's like being freeze-dried simultaneously. Your heart, lungs, and brain stop working. I had forgotten about the incident. I blurted it all out, but there was no conviction. The charges were dropped. I lied. I made up a name. I was scared. I remember the police fingerprinting me because I had no ID. Was my life to be forever determined by lack of identity? When the charges were dropped, I was relieved. Yes, the records does show that the charges were dropped, the interviewer said. She continued talking about how she gave me every chance to be honest, but all I told her about was shoplifting. Even as I protested that I had forgotten and it was a misunderstanding, there was no moral conviction in my voice. My heart wasn't in it. I felt guilty. It was true. The words seared into my brain. Miss Hart, I gave you a chance to be honest, but you didn't tell me about it. I'm the kind of person that will remember anything involving the police, even a parking ticket. My face settled into sullen thoughts of disappointment. That was 21 years ago. What a boring life you must have. What hope was there? This was only the tip of the iceberg. What are recent times in the street, drunk, homeless, desperate to do anything for drugs. I was living life from a bus stop in South Central LA. How dare I try to pass myself off as a good citizen? But something inside me believed my spiritual change was real. I had given up my sugar daddy and asked God to help me pay my own way. I realized again the joy of being with people just because I liked them. I hadn't had a drink or done any drugs in 3 years. I go to AA meetings in church basements where the words of hope pierced me so sweetly that I didn't even realize I was crying. Am I redeemable? I wonder what this well-grown Black woman about my age saw while interviewing me. Couldn't she identify me as being a Black sister? Or would she congratulate herself because she kept an Oriental prostitute from Citizenship? She was relentless. Ms. Hart, it's my job to determine if you have sufficient moral character to be a good citizen of the United States. And because you weren't honest with me, I must deny your application for citizenship. I was frozen into all the mistakes of my misbegotten youth. A desperate search for identity and acceptance, painful separation from my Korean mother, and finally, the hopelessness that leads to drugs and self-destruction. Insufficient moral character morphed into America doesn't want you, Korea doesn't want you, neither Blacks nor Koreans accept you fully, and finally, even your own mother didn't want you. I felt as exposed as the wounded animal in front of her. I wanted to hide in dark places and lick my wound. I wanted the oblivion of drugs and alcohol. She paused and stated, Miss Hart, I'm giving you permission to reapply in 6 months, but make sure you tell the truth. I am locked into hopelessness again and ready to crumble. The truth will be yes to at least 5 questions that would disqualify me for citizenship. I had neither heart nor courage to continue. How do I explain a life in transition when each day brought the challenges of normalcy to a dissolute soul? I lacked sufficient moral character. Skid Row is a few blocks east of the LA Federal Building. I left the interview and started walking east into familiar terrain. I once lived on Skid Row in a welfare hotel. I was in the spastic mode that addicts have. My eyes have lost focus and my body jerked and twitched with anticipation. I sought to numb the pain. I have been rejected by entire countries. I needed to quiet the voices reminding me that I don't belong anywhere, never good enough, nor wanted. I needed relief. Okay, so I hope that was a good teaser to make you want to continue into the story. Did I get loaded again? And if I didn't, what kind of intervention did God send me to help me out of this mess. Did I ever get citizenship? So as we are all telling you, go get our book and find out. Thank you. I'm pleased to now introduce our next part of our program, and I think that is our merchandising, and I think that's going to be presented by Valerie.
I'll actually present it. Thank you so much, Miss Ida. Beautiful story. So as we mentioned before, we have a website that has lots of wonderful merchandise on it. We have, of course, all of our books, but we also have candles and mugs and candles, mugs, and t-shirts. So we would love for you to go to our site, check out our merchandise, purchase anything that you desire, and those funds will be put to great use to support our scholarship fund. Thank you so much. I'll introduce our next reader. Our reader is Miss Wanda Green Scott.
Thank you, Lori. Yes, I am Wanda Green Scott. It's so wonderful to be here, and we appreciate you all joining us on this wonderful Saturday afternoon. I am a creative. I, like Gail, too, was accepted and joined the writers group during the pandemic. So I call myself the freshman still. So we had a wonderful time writing virtually, sharpening each other, editing our stories, and just, being one together, at such an unprecedented time. So my story is really my personal journey as a lupus warrior and patient. I've battled and navigated and triumphed and struggled with lupus for the past 14 years. I'm a patient advocate. I have been legislating in this pandemic to have laws changed to benefit those with chronic conditions. And I am going to take you on a wonderful journey. My story is entitled Lion Diva Rises. Look at me, damn it, I demanded. My life's destroyed like a brutal home invasion. Robber, violently stealing my most valuable possessions without care, unleashing your sinister crime with duct tape across my mouth while you pistol whip me. I sob uncontrollably as I figure this perfect storm out. My body's throbbing, clashing and thrashing as a brewing ocean storm forecast by Dallas Rains. Only you can brutalize my life, causing excruciating pain as my joints and organs inflame. I want vengeance, and I need it now. There's nothing I could do to get rid of you alone. I'm scared, terrified, and blue, trembling with soft tears rolling down my cheeks. I hide in my bed for relief. Like clockwork, you build up torrential currents as you wash ashore. I didn't recognize your wreckage and velocity. You've stricken me so hard like a drunk man who plants his fist on the side of his wife's pretty face. You pounce on me with your larger-than-life presence, inflicting black and blue internal bruises, constantly throwing defeat in my face. I'm exhausted. Stop slowing me down with another hideous diagnosis, or praying rest in peace for the souls gone before me. Death has knocked on my door. My secret plight arises. Am I going to die? Honestly, I want to run away like Usain Bolt or Flojo and Tide. I stand tall, hoping against hope that I'll win. Then I realize the severity of your ruthlessness. My world's a crushed house of dominoes. I sit at my doctor's office waiting for a battery of test results. My thoughts race as if I'm speeding on the Autobahn abroad, clenching and praying there's no new diagnosis. You've come on strong like a bitter cup of hot coffee. My jaw tightens in fear as my results arrive. Is it this or that? My numbing routine boils down to revolving doors of tests, surgeries, scarred veins, hospitalizations, and lymph nodes, all mimicking cancer. Again, waiting for my other stiletto to drop. You will have to find out the rest of what goes on and my entire journey in this story. So, as all the other ladies have reminded you, please visit our website. Each purchase of the book and our merchandise goes toward continuing the legacy of Elise. Thank you so much. And our next reader is Karen.
Hello, my name is Karen Johnson. I've been with the group, I believe, since late 2018. I came when the founder, Elise, was still living, and I had the opportunity to be mentored by her. So writing has always been my passion. Presently, I am a special education teacher / IEP coordinator, and I coordinate IEP programs for John Muir Charter School, and I also mentor teachers on how to work with students with disabilities. My writing passion comes in a lot of forms. Passions such as poetry is my first passion, although I write short stories, and I'm also currently writing a fictional short story book. Today I'm going to let you into a little of my my poetry. This is called My American Dream. Smile, you're on candid camera. Sometimes I have to give myself permission to cry. I mean, really cry. Where do I start? I have so much to say. How do I say it? It's filled with pain and sorrow and thoughts of not wanting to wake up to my tomorrows. Who will listen? Because I need the intended targets to hear it. The ones that did a drive-by on my heart left me with congestive failure. Now I'm fighting to breathe, hooked up to machines, struggling because my oxygen tank is making me wheeze. Polluted with pollutants from the American dream that swallowed up my brothers, my uncles, and even my own son to pose, unfortunately, on America's prison team. My tomorrows came in the form of a courtroom where I sat and I witnessed the injustices of what it's like to be a Black boy on the other side of the law in America. There's no innocence until proven guilty, because you're guilty the moment you walk into the courtroom. If you say no to the plea bargain, you now become a target of both the public defender and the prosecutor, because after all, how dare you challenge their skills? See, they've mastered putting away Black boys, and no matter how loud one screams all lives matter, Black lives don't. It's just us weighing down the imbalanced scales of just us. If Black lives matter, they wouldn't be given sentences that destroy any hope of a future, while white boys are still getting out on privileged plea deals that don't include felonies and enhancements, because after all lives matter, right? Yeah. I grew up living America's dream and building with concrete beams, while my grandmother's sons and even great grandsons too have spent over 120 collective years stitching America's prison seams, sold them a distorted lie, used plea bargains to cover their coveted alibis, recruited them as beams to maintain once again a concrete scene. America did a drive-by on my dream. Now my heart is screaming and jumping and shouting, because this injustice is killing me, and I can't keep quiet or silent any longer, because the American justice system did a drive-by on my heart. Now I'm fighting to breathe, hooked up to machines, struggling because my oxygen tank is making me wheeze, polluted with pollutants from the American dream, swallowed up my brothers, my uncles, and even my own son to pose on America's prison team. Smile, America, you're on candid camera. So that's just one of the poems that I have in volume 6. And I believe I have about 3 more poems in there that address the social injustices that oftentimes happen to African-American men. And now I believe I will introduce the last speaker. We have Newey.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Newey Brown. I've been with the Community Writers Group for probably about the past 5 years or so. It's been an honor and a joy to be with this wonderful group of women. And I'm just so happy that all of you came out today to support us. It really means a lot as we share our stories. And because if we don't tell our stories, no one else will. And to keep our lives vibrant and I can't, whatever, I'll just keep going. To keep us who we are, because we are people. We have feelings. We are African American, but we are worthy to be acknowledged. With that, I too, like my fellow poet Karen, is going to read something from you from Volume 6. It's called The African Inkwell. And I'm just going to read excerpts from it. I'm not going to read the whole thing. And I hope you enjoy it. African Inkwell. As America dips as stylists into the African American inkwell, what stories do they write? Their perceptions of who we are or who we're supposed to be is painted on their canvases to justify their twisted needs because they can't accept that we are descendants of an African diaspora, rich of ancient African kings and queens, a truth that once was for us, but is losing ground in our history, but doesn't reflect the richness of the ink's true identity and reality. As America dips its stylus into the African American inkwell, do they calligraphy the injustices that take place? Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Trayvon Martin, Oscar Grant, and the beating of Rodney King. Can we all just get along? Should be the new national song. But instead, we are constantly reaching for Let Freedom Ring. And many don't know the lyrics of Lift Every Voice and Sing. We still every day feel the lynching effects of Emmett Till. Being Black in America, where white lives matter, where racism is recycled and served up fresh like hot chicken on a platter. The batter of the oppressor is hate of oneself versus the true question of power. As America dips its stylus into the African American inkwell, can the stylist dip into the well and write about Black brilliance? Sarah Boone, Garrett Morgan, Alexander Miles, Elijah McCoy, or Benjamin Banneker? Langston Hughes, County Cullen, James Baldwin, August Wilson, they were the masters. And still I rise, Maya Angelou, break the chain of false perceptions of beauty and social acceptance with whiteness. Free me, Toni Morrison, for wanting a bluest eye, which these stories of real struggle just to be happen every day of our lives. But that never seems to fit the page, and I'm often dismayed because no matter how great we are, we have to fight our own good fight, and most just turn their heads and never see the blood caused by their insecurities and weaknesses that were shed. For if they don't execute us physically, they constantly kill us with words that were left unsaid. And like a hanging chad, we are doomed if we're not already dead. As America dips its stylus into the African American inkwell, what do they write? As we chant no justice, no peace, as we protest in the streets, the inkwell is a continuous target, and all we ever ask for is a little respect. We built this country with our blood and gave until we had nothing left. And if you'd like to read more of this wonderful poem, please buy Volume 6. Thank you.
So, ladies, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the stories, and I feel extremely honored that both Katrina and I were able to assist in this program. And I totally understand now why Rose have always been talking wonderful things about you guys. So thank you on behalf of Katrina and myself, and I'm sure the audience, for sharing your lovely stories. We had some comments and some questions. I always like lighthearted comments, but one of them is Gail. They love your earrings. And let me scroll down. A few people had commented on the Soul Train, and these comments I don't understand, but I'm sure Valerie will. Someone had commented, I recall when Jermaine Jackson introduced the barge on Soul Train, and another person commented, it's all gonna be a stone gas, honey. And then another person commented that they loved watching Soul Train. And let's see what else. A lot of folks had commented that these stories are touching and powerful. and that, let's see, there's one that had commented on Wanda's story. Yvette had shared that Lion Diva is a sensational story, and she's also a lupus cancer and CDK survivor, and she can completely relate. And the story puts a fire in her heart to never give up for those better days. And thank you for sharing these fabulous stories. So, I love these comments. And someone wanted to know, how often do you all meet, and is there a fee?
I'll answer that. We meet once a month, the third Sunday of every month. And the first year that you join, it's a fee to help with the publishing of the stories. So the initial fee is $200. Then when your stories are published in the volume that they're published in, you are required to sell at least 10 of those books of that volume. So it would be an additional $200 for, or whatever the price is for the book, because it may be a different price this year. You would be required to sell 10 of those and pay that amount in addition to the $200. So every year we're required to pay a minimum of $200, but once you actually have a story published, it's $400 or 210 books.
Thank you, Lori.
Mhm.
Another comment was that someone wanted to say that you guys do such rewarding sorry, that these stories were rewarding and uplifting, and they really need it today. So thank you again, ladies. Did any of you guys write before joining this group? Write and publish, I'm assuming the question is.
I think that a lot of the ladies did write. Anybody on the panel can jump in if you want.
I wanted to add something. I never wrote. I was a math and science teacher when I worked in special ed. So literature and writing was like the farthest thing from my mind. But what I did do all the time was tell stories. And when I met Marcia, that's what we did, an hour and a half lunch. Marcia is one of our members who's moved to Michigan now, but she's going to be still writing. And all we did was tell stories. And she told me then that that's what we write our stories. So I would say to anybody, number one, if you tell stories, you can write. And then number two, joining our group, you will be so supported and so stimulated to create. I cannot tell you how good it feels. I mean, nobody likes to be criticized, but when you bring your story to our group, because we do that. We read our stories, and then we get feedback. So it's a safe, nurturing, great place. And I know that the stories that you're hearing and the stories that I've written were not the ones that I started with. So I really needed to say that. Sorry to interrupt, but it's just such a community of writers.
That was not go ahead, Peggy.
I was just going to say, I came to the group. I am not and never thought I would be a writer. And so this is a terrific opportunity for me. I never dreamed I would be in this place. But I came to the group primarily in response to Elise's woodshop at CAM on writing personal history. And I was intrigued along with several other people at the time, and insisted that she have a follow-up workshop. And that's how this whole thing got started. And I also have an interest in genealogy. And one of the things that came over there, that it's best to keep your family history in written narrative form rather than just charts and somebody begot somebody and somebody begot somebody else. That's not memorable. but who they were, what they did, where they did it. Oh, those are the kinds of things that the children and the next generation will remember. Just wanted to add that.
Karen said
Wanna-
she's been writing over 30 years. And Ida, speak up, Ida. She's a writer.
Yeah, my name is Ida. And, Ida, I'm writing under the name Ida Suno. And but I really have not had anything major published. I've been included in several anthologies though. And the last acceptance is a book coming out in September called Non-White and Woman. And it's an anthology is a collection of works by different authors in one book. And so, and I guess you can say our Snapshot is an anthology also, because
That's right.
it's a collection of different stories by women and men now. When someone asked about do you have to be a writer in order to be here? You don't have to. I just started 10 years ago. And I think I've heard 2 other teachers say they were science and math teachers, and I too am one of them too. And you want to talk about atoms and molecules and habitats and ecology, well, and chemistry and biology, that's fine. So I didn't think I could write either. I think what it is, it's something in your heart that wants to put your words and your feelings and your thoughts on paper. And I think that's all it takes to be a writer. Because after that, it's just a skill that you have to learn, that's all. But the thoughts and your feelings are yours. And nobody else can say what you have to say. So I want to encourage anybody out there thinking about writing and thinking about joining us. Come on.
That's wonderful. On that note, does anyone else have any comments on those who want to write, who are just starting or maybe afraid to start?
I would like to answer that or add something to the conversation. I started writing in first grade, and I've written throughout my whole life. And then as you go along, I had a diary through high school, you start journaling, and it just kind of evolved. So it's a natural progression. But for anybody that just, is interested in telling their story, I've got to tell you, just start writing. Right? We have these beautiful cell phones these days. You have the note app on your cell phone. Use it and write. Even if you just write one sentence, I had a crummy day and why, or I had a great day and why. Because as you continue to answer the questions that come and pour out of your heart, you're going to end up writing a story. That's what we're trying to say here, that these stories just kind of pour out of your heart. And there's something that's what do you call it? That's an affinity to you, that you like, that you cherish, that you kind of spurs you on, or it lights a fire under you because you want change. So I would say just start where you are, because whatever you're writing, like Ida says, it's what you're saying, and nobody else can say it or do it like you. And keep those stories going. Teach the young children to write. Because my grandparents, who are no longer with us, they shared a lot of oral history in our family and in genealogy. And that's where my love of genealogy developed. And because of that, I write. So we hope you all can write too. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that, Wanda. That's great. We have the pleasure of having an artist in residence who is on our board. Her name is Miss Juanita Jennings, and she's just a phenomenal actress. And she and Elise, our founder, were really great friends, and she wanted to help us to continue to carry on Elise's legacy. And she thought, maybe if we have actors read your stories, and you could have them voice these stories for you and interpret them for you. And so she joined us and picked a few of the stories or several of the stories and invited some of her acting friends to read the stories. And we have a video clip of her reading one of our stories, and we would like to share that with you. It's a short video, and I think you will enjoy it.
My mother and I have not spoken for 2 to 3 years. Actually, the relationship between my parents and me became strained when I married and started my own family. It was very painful. It was Christmas 1981 in Atlanta, Georgia. My in-laws were over for the holiday dinner, and we were having such a lovely time until my mother-in-law, Harriet, asked me how my parents were doing. I did not want to talk about them. I hesitated and said, not good. According to Harriet, a retired high school chemistry teacher, that was not a satisfactory answer. She lovingly looked at me and asked again, what's wrong, Marcia? She knew I had been married to her son for over 10 years. She knew my mother, Clarice. She cupped her hands around my face, got close, looked into my eyes and said, I don't know the pain you're feeling. I can't even imagine. But there is one thing I do know. You, my dear Marcia, must always do the right thing, no matter how it hurts. I raised my voice. I don't want to. I began to cry. She gave me one of her famous bear hugs and whispered in my ear and said, love melts the hardest of hearts. Just love her. When it's Clarice's birthday, send her a card. When it's Mother's Day, send a card. Don't stop. Keep the love flowing. I threw my pride out the window and did what Harriet suggested for years. After Mom's death, on Christmas 2005, I was organizing my house, the rare thing for me, and I found some notebooks. They were handwritten daily notes. I had no idea Mama was keeping a diary. I was reading one of her stories. This particular day, she was very angry. She wrote, I received a Mother's Day card from all my children. Marcia sent nothing. I'm through with her. She is no daughter of mine. The very next day, she wrote, I just received Marcia's card. It's simply beautiful. Love does melt the heart. The hardest of hearts. Thank you, Harriet. Thank you.
What a moving clip. I saw this earlier and I couldn't help but relate to the story or just identify a little bit with it. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes, and now we would like to thank you for participating, giving up your Saturday afternoon and joining with us. We are certain from the chat that you enjoyed our stories. We'd like to ask you to subscribe so that our next event, which is in February of 2022, And hopefully the pandemic will be behind us. Our plans are to be in Lawrence Park to have a big, gigantic book launch and reception where you will get to meet us in person. And do know volume 7, we have 5 new readers that are in volume 7. Thank you so very much for your presence today. Thank you very much for purchasing our books and other items. Thank you for your donations. And have a blessed afternoon.
Thank you, Akosia. And just as a reminder, if you need to contact them, their contact information is on the slide and also in the chat. You ladies did a wonderful job. So thank you again for this presentation and sharing your stories. And yes, everyone have a nice and lovely Saturday. Oh, winners. Are we announcing that here or oh yes.
Sure. Yeah. Go right
I
ahead.
wanted to confirm with Katrina. Katrina? Let's see. So the winners that I saw was Elizabeth and Kelly, Terrence, Vanessa, and Aubrey. Is that correct, Katrina? I think Katrina's probably checking her list.
I
And-
defer to you, Kasha. I only got 3, so I defer
Oh.
to you.
Oh, okay. Yes. I think some folks sent it to the host, which that's me. So yes, those are the 5 winners that I saw first. I know there was other people who answered. Thank you for answering the trivia question. And you guys are lucky because I am ready to read this book, but I don't have it. So just stay tuned. We'll email the winners the book, and thank you, ladies. So I hope everyone has a wonderful Saturday. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina and Kasha,
Welcome.
and everyone
Yes,
for
ladies.
coming.
Thank
you
you.
so
Yeah,
much.
thank you. You guys are, yeah. Thank
Did you want to share the answer?
Oh, yes. If you would like to say her name.
Lorraine Hansberry.
Yeah.
A raisin in the sun, I think.
Correct.
Yep.
That's
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Cool. And then we'll reach out to the winners, hopefully by next week, next Monday. Is that fine?
Yeah, that's fine. If you get me
Awesome.
their information, we will get it
Mhm.
out.
Awesome.
Thank you all
again,
so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for
Bye.
coming.
Yes, this was such a wonderful and powerful, inspiring afternoon. Thank you so much for sharing your personal stories with us.
Yes. We'll be
Thanks.
reading.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.